my number 5. This is a hot take. This for the very few people that kind of like Freddy's Nightmares, this is usually in most people's top 5. You're all fucking wrong. You're all fucking nuts. My number 5, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Excellent.
I'm taking him in clean and legal. Anybody who wants to get in my way can come along. In handcuffs.
Hey, Cop, you got a pretty little girl.
Shut up!
We got interrupted before I could get to know him. They'll like me a lot better next time.
Next time.
Where do you have it?
Number 3 worst.
It's shit.
Yep.
It's a shit episode.
I thought this was going to be your number 1.
Fuck
because
no,
I thought
it's
that
crap.
you'd buy into this piece of crap.
No, and anybody, the problem is, I think most people, this is it.
I watched this one twice just to be sure.
So did I.
Yep.
Most people, what they know of Freddy's Nightmares is very little. There's not a lot of info. Most people haven't watched the whole thing. They haven't watched all the episodes. So what they've heard is that, oh, there's a pilot episode that actually is a prequel to the first Nightmare on Elm Street. That sounds awesome on paper. When you hear that, you're like, oh, cool. We get to see some footage we never got to see before. It was directed by Tobe Hooper. Oh,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre fame.
Are you kidding me? That sounds like a match made in heaven. Oh, it's a courtroom drama, and Robert Englund gets to do some actual serious acting in it. You hear all that, so then people got it in their head. That was it. That was the best. Yeah, there was this one awesome episode, and then you watch it. And it's just, all right. So this is the pilot of the show.
Mm-hmm.
The A and B plot is the exact same. I'm so glad this is on your worst. So glad. It sucks so bad.
Yep.
It's just so disappointing.
I wasn't sure how you were going to come down on this one.
No, it's really bad. Yeah. See, folks.
Every once in a while.
See, we're like a married couple. We have our spats. But at the end of the day, we always end up in bed together. we always find a way back to one another. Right. Okay. So it begins with a court procedure. Ooh.
Always exciting.
The trial of Fred Krueger. Yep. And it's like immediately I knew. I was like, as soon as I started watching, I went, oh, fuck, this is going to suck. This sets the tone for the whole show and the whole episode. So Fred Krueger's on trial for I'm assuming like, so this is the part we didn't see, which is they have caught him now. He has murdered several kids.
Murdered kids, yeah.
He has murdered kids, not molested them.
Not anything more.
He has murdered them. We're going with that timeline. It's the only thing this episode gets right. And he's standing trial, and there's a defense attorney and a prosecutor, and they go through their statements. And then the judge, I don't remember where this comes out of. I think it comes from the defense, brings forward something to the judge. And turns out Fred Krueger gets off on a technicality.
The evidence presented to this court was obtained during an illegal arrest.
Oh, no.
Not in compliance with the Supreme Court's ruling on the rights of the accused. With great regret, I must grant defense's motion to dismiss.
Your Honor, this man cannot be allowed to walk free.
Then he should have been read his rights at the time of his arrest. I'm as sorry as you, but the law is the law.
He has his aha moment or gotcha moment.
Yeah, and they fuck up. Okay, so they go, he gets off. The technicality is that it was an illegal arrest.
He wasn't read his rights.
Is that what it was supposed to be?
So
I thought it was an illegal. I thought my mind, I was like, oh, maybe they meant illegal search,
right?
Because that is more likely.
Yeah.
But like, when does that ever come up? Like how often is like
that's why
cops didn't read their rights?
That's why they blame Lieutenant Blocker, right?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Okay, so I thought it was an illegal search.
Yeah,
but
I think it was.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think it was. He wasn't read his Miranda rights. Okay, whatever. Stupid. So he gets off on a technicality. The show, the episode's immediately off to a bad start. Freddy Krueger is like sitting in a cartoony prison box. It's like this stupid like prop they made that would never be in a courtroom, where it's like, I've actually sat in a courtroom where they have people that like did violent crimes. They are sitting behind glass, but it's like off to the side, kind of like where you would think the jury would typically sit, like that bench.
Yep.
They usually have like this plastic box. He's like sitting to the side of the judge in like the corner, and he's like all in shadows, which makes no sense. And it's like so overly stylized, and it's like this, it's like something out of Silence of the Lambs. It's like this glass box that he's in. And he's wearing his sweater? Why the fuck would he be wearing his Freddy Krueger sweater? And I don't know if you caught this. Do you know what he's holding? Did you catch this?
No.
He's holding his fedora.
Oh, yeah, he's got his hat. Yeah.
Why would you have that?
Yeah.
Why would you be allowed? What? Why? Everything's wrong.
Right.
Everything's wrong. That makes no sense. This is a court case, right? This is a court trial. He would be in a suit.
Yep.
He would not be, his lawyer would not let him wear a fucking sweater. Firstly, why would he even have the sweater and the fedora? Also, what is the implication here? That was his trademark look? He always just wore this sweater and the fedora?
Or is this like the classic Abraham Lincoln trope? Like you won't recognize Abraham Lincoln if he doesn't have the big stovetop hat and the beard,
it's
right?
so obviously for the audience, and that's why I'm like, oh, we're into the shit immediately. We're off to a bad start here. So our protagonist is, as you've already said, Lieutenant Tim Blocker.
Yep.
And he is the father of Merritt and Lisa in the much improved. Yeah.
Yep.
Isn't it funny that like the best episode came out of the worst episode?
Yeah. Well, almost the best. Yes.
The true best.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So Krueger gets off in a technicality, and everybody blames Blocker. They're like, you only had this one thing to do, Tim, and you fucked it up.
There's the woman that yells at him like incessantly.
Yeah, I don't remember, and the town is frustrated, and led by the lead prosecutor, they form a lynch mob.
Yeah.
Exactly following, I don't even have Elm Street 1 here on the table, but let's count this as Elm Street 1. Exactly following the plot of Elm Street 1. And then, it's just so stupid. One of his daughters, I think it's supposed to be Merritt, she has like an ominous line, and she's like, she says to her dad, she's like, you can't kill Freddy, you only make it worse.
Daddy, you can't kill Freddy, you'll only make it worse.
How do you know this?
What?
What?
From what?
From what?
Yeah.
What are you basing that on?
Yeah.
If you kill someone that was a murderer, they come back as a vengeful spirit according to horror movie lore. Like, shut the fuck up. What are you basing that on? That's based on nothing. Like, did Freddy tell you that in one of your nightmares? Was he like, hey, tell your dad? Wait, no, he couldn't have even done that because he's not dead yet.
Yeah.
So she couldn't even be having Freddy Krueger.
There is no Freddy Krueger at this point, right? Like,
and that's, hold off.
Yeah.
I have so many things I want to dunk about in this fucking episode. So Tim places an officer at his house to keep watch, and his wife like comes out with like this shitty little paper plate of like 3 pieces of fried chicken. Did you catch this?
Yes.
It's like so like, oh, you had no money.
Yeah.
There was no budget for
like
this.
literally no money.
It's literally like a shitty little paper plate and like 3 little pieces of chicken, and the guy's just like nibbles a little bit. She's like, oh, you must be hungry. Thanks for watching.
You probably couldn't even take a bite in case they needed to redo the shot.
Right. So I think he just like nibbles on it. Yeah, right. Freddy then shows, so Freddy's out on the loose. The lynch mob is hunting him, and Blocker is aware there's a lynch mob, and he's basically like, no, this is, we follow the law. We are a society of laws and regulations. Like, I got to stop this lynch mob before they go too far. So he's basically trying to find Freddy before they find him. Freddy goes to his house and kills the officer that was watching them. This isn't a dream, folks. Yep. Fred Krueger's still alive. He is a corporeal form. He's like flesh and blood. He kills that officer. The mob shows up, and I just love, I don't know if you call this detail, they show up, and then like they show up at like the exact same time that Blocker shows up, and they quickly like gloss over the fact that like there's a dead police officer just sitting there.
Right.
And they both just like rush off, and they're like, he's not gonna get away. Like, we're hot on his trail. Let's go, Tim. And they like rush off, and it's like, there's procedure to follow. Like, it's basically like the Ben Tramer thing over again.
I was going to say,
it's literally
Halloween 2
this
over.
Halloween 2 logic where it's like, fuck that. We have a plot to get to.
I don't care if this corpse is burning alive.
Right.
So
Blocker
details.
just like leaves a dead cop outside of his family's
His
house.
own family's
his own
house.
family's house. Yeah. Yeah. They are now like 20 feet away from a poor dead man that has been like gutted by Freddy Krueger. So the mob they're hot on Freddy's trail, and they track him down to his secret hideout, which is like, it's a boiler room in like a giant factory.
Yeah.
It's like in some industrial area. Where is this? Why does Freddy Krueger have unrestricted access to this? Does he own this power plant or whatever the fuck this is supposed to be? Like, that is a good question. So I want your take on this. Where do you think Freddy Krueger committed his murders? Because they hint at this in a couple of the movies. Some of the movies said he did it, like he took them to a place. That was the lore I always interpreted, was that he kidnapped the children, would bring them to some killing place, and then killed them. The sixth one explains that he kills them at his own house, that he like had that like fucked up torture room underneath the house. The second one implies that like he brought them to that factory. So that's kind of what they're going with, that lore. They're going with like the part 2 lore. What's your take on this? I'm kind of curious what you think.
This is going to allude to why I don't like this episode, but I'll sort of touch on it here. I don't like that there's an answer to that question. Because
You think it needs to be ambiguous?
I think that part of what makes this Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one in particular, as good as it is that nobody talks about it. It's this secret that the neighborhood parents have that they've held on to for 15, 16 years.
Right.
They've all kept amongst themselves. They're racked with guilt. Some of them have drinking problems now, but they've all maintained tight-lipped
secrecy basically,
on this.
Yeah,
so you don't know what happened.
There's like this curtain of mystery.
That's
like
right.
You just don't know.
And that needs to be maintained.
No, it doesn't. Freddy Krueger
We
was a
don't.
guy walking
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
in a Christmas sweater, wearing a fedora, and he works at this power plant. He has an ice cream truck. They give you all the answers, Mark, none of which make any sense.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, he's got like, okay, so the way I was interpreting it was, I think Freddy Krueger had a kill room.
Yeah.
What that looked like, where that was, I don't know. There is a shot in one of the movies where they tracked him down and then like Molotov cocktailed him to death in the one, like his little hideout. So they're going with that.
Sure.
I'm not against it.
Sure.
The problem is, my beef here is, why, like, how does he have access to this power plant? And like, the thing is like, oh, they caught Freddy Krueger, right? Okay. Where did they catch him? Seemingly they needed evidence. So was the evidence this kill room? So why would he go back there? And why would there not be police there? Like, wouldn't it be police taped off? You know what I mean? It's like, it's the equivalent of like the police overlooked, like they didn't know he had this kill room. But again, why does he have, like, how does he have access to this room in a giant power plant that's seemingly an operational factory? Like, who is not noticing this? Is somebody else in on this? Does Freddy Krueger have an accomplice? It raises too many questions. I'm not against the kill room idea. The problem is it's executed clumsily here.
Yep.
It's dumb. But they track him down, and Lieutenant Blocker shows up just in time as the Lynch is like, Krueger is at the hideout, and the Lynch mob approaches him and is like, time to get your punishment, Krueger. I don't know that they talk like that, but whatever. And I'm giving them like...
That's better than it actually was.
Yeah. And Blocker shows up and he's like, no, we're going to follow the law. We're going to do this right, you know? And then Krueger like eggs him on. He like goats him and he's like, it's a shame I didn't get any time with those adorable kids of yours, Tim, or something like that. Yeah. And then Tim's just like, you son of a bitch.
He has a change of heart.
Too far.
Yeah.
And then he
douses him with the old gasoline.
Douses Freddy Krueger with gasoline and lights him on fire, which is, they loved this shot. It is a cool shot. They do the firewalk gag, like it's actually a guy lit on fire. They show that shot, I think, both in the intro of the show and many times in flashbacks.
Right.
Like, they really got their worth out of that shot. They got their money.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a cool shot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anytime you're going to set a guy on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the end of the A plot.
Yep.
On to the B plot. And the B plot is a convoluted mess, I personally feel. The B plot is basically, what if you took Elm Street 1, but instead of Nancy being the protagonist, John Saxon was the main protagonist? That's literally what it is.
But not John Saxon.
But yeah, right.
The-
But it is John Saxon's character. That's the thing. See, this is where, it's also why I hate this episode is it retcons 1.
Yeah. So that's, well, we'll get there.
Well, I mean, we're there right
Yeah,
now. It
yeah.
literally retcons 1 because, like, why? Did you look this up, how they were supposed to explain this? Because, like, John Saxon is clearly supposed to be Tim Blocker. Like, it's like the same character.
Same character, but it's not the same character. And this is one of the
No,
concerns.
it's not, but it's supposed to represent that
He's the
character.
stand-in for him.
Right. So,
But-
like,
But it's not.
like, are we supposed to think John Saxon's character was part of that lynch mob?
So, okay.
This is where I get confused. It's like, yeah, you might as well bring it up right now because I don't have much. Because
So one of the points that I have is in the Lynch Mob group, we're missing some people.
Nancy's mom.
Where is Marge and Donald Thompson?
Who are they again?
That's Nancy's parents, Nancy Thompson.
Oh, okay. There
Right?
you go.
Where are they? The problem is if you're going to do something like this, if you're gonna take the whole pilot idea, the whole origin story down off the shelf, and you're gonna touch that, right? That's sacrosanct.
That's sacred.
That's sacred, right?
You're fucking with the lore.
Yeah, if
you're
gonna,
retconning.
If you're going to do that, you have to do it. They did not do it.
Right.
They screwed every aspect of it up. You can't do this on the cheap, and if you do, it's going to look that much worse because everyone already has in their mind what this looks like. You did not live up to that expectation.
Right.
Right? Who are these people? Right? We never hear from them again. Right? Why is Lieutenant Blocker suddenly the guy? Like I wasn't overly concerned with why is Freddy choosing him to kind of haunt. Like I feel like Freddy could do this to whoever he wants. He just tends to choose the children of Elm Street to get at their parents. So maybe at this point he hadn't figured out that that's what he wants to do. All right, free pass, right? But he doesn't make a very good victim. And if you're telling an origin story, you kind of need to stick with the plot that's already been established. And they didn't do that. Yeah, so that's my kind of that's my point on
the retcon. Well,
yeah.
okay, so going back onto the retcon here for a second though. So they also retcon at Elm Street 3 because they use, did you catch this? So
Not sure.
Okay,
No.
so Tim and the Lynch Mob burn Krueger alive, right? Well, they got to get rid of his remains, similar to what they do in Elm Street 1, which is the plot of the subplot of Elm Street 3, which is putting Freddy's actual remains to rest because you know he was lynched, right? Yep. So the idea is like if you give him a proper burial, his spirit can move on. That's the thought, anyways. Of course, that doesn't work.
That doesn't last, but it works for that.
Whatever.
Yep.
So they use the junkyard.
Yep.
Did you catch this?
Is that supposed to be the same?
Yes.
Yeah.
The implication is that that's the junkyard. So Tim tells one of his fellow officers who realizes what happens. He like admits to him. He's like, yeah, we did an awful thing. And then he's like, no, Tim, you did the right thing. You took that piece of shit off the street. And then he's like, I'll help you cover it up.
I killed a man in cold blood, Jane.
What are you so worried about the feds for? So they find a body, so what? No one's gonna talk.
Springwood's too small. Somebody'll crack. Somebody always cracks. When they do, I'm history.
Not if there isn't any body to find. I'll go to the power plant. I'll take care of the body.
And then that guy goes and takes Freddy's remains and hides them somewhere. But then the whole B plot is Tim keeps having these recurring nightmares about Freddy and Freddy's torturing him. And Freddy like slashes him in the opening dream, and then he actually has the slash marks.
Yep.
So he is literally the Nancy in this story. He is the victim of Freddy right now. And he's trying to hide this dark secret from getting out, and he enlists his coworker, and at one point he's like, I got to make sure. He's like, I got to, there's like the FBI gets involved. That's what it is. The FBI gets involved, and then he's like, oh no, like I have anxiety about this because they might find out this terrible thing I did. You know, I could also go to jail. So he's like, show me where you buried the body. And they go to the junkyard. That's, I think, supposed to be an allusion to the junkyard in 3. And his remains are also in the trunk of a car. But it's stupid because they open the trunk and there's nothing there. But
so then,
right,
what happened here?
Right, exactly.
And this movie has already happened, by the way. So
it's like they retcon it because it's like, oh, his remains disappeared, but then also he wakes up and it's like, oh, so was that a dream? Was it? This is one of those. Is he asleep? Is he not asleep? It's never clear cut. Yeah. They just he's just constantly bouncing in and out of nightmares, and everybody's acting cartoony. Nobody's acting like real people, so it's so hard to follow. Like, it represents so much of what's wrong with the show,
right?
You know.
I don't know why they didn't spend 45 minutes on the origin story, because the whole B plot was him just messing around.
You're just getting a typical Freddy Krueger victim story. Right. That's all it is.
Like, his kill at the end was okay. I mean, we don't see anything, but I mean, it's very Freddy Krueger.
It's very Freddy Krueger. Yeah.
No, my biggest complaint about this episode is that if you're going to do this, you have to do it, and you've got to do it right. And they didn't. If I was Bob Shea and I saw that, if I was Wes Craven and I saw that, I'd be like, you have just ruined.
I would have been appalled.
The legacy of this. You know, and this movie has been around for a while. We already know that, you know, they were kind of in the midst of part 4 and part 5. So even though the movies were kind of tanking the legacy of Freddy all on their own at this point, at least there were elements that even the worst of the movies didn't touch, right? They don't mess with the first one. They all leave that one alone. This one messed with the first one, and you do not have license to do that, especially when you are a crappy weekly television series that, you know, each episode was like made for $300 or something stupid.
Yeah, I wrote down, there's literally no ambiguity of whether he's innocent or not. Ruins the mystery of the original series. Because that was one of the things we talked about in the original, when we were talking about the original series of films, except for the remake, where the remake was just like, oh no, he was bad, he was evil, which that was a missed opportunity. All the other ones, you never really knew. There was that possibility that they killed an innocent man.
Right. And that's part of the reason why the parents are having a hard time with it. Because they're
not 100%.
That's right. They're never going to find out. Right. And in this, it makes it clear.
But in this one, okay, so he gets off and he immediately goes back to his hideout, and he's got like an ice cream truck decoy.
Right.
He goes to like his ice cream truck and he's just like, we have work to do. And it's like, oh, so there's just no mystery whatsoever. It's like, okay, so you were evil. Cool.
Yeah.
Like that's so lame. And I've got to shit on Robert Englund here for a second, because people give him credit for this episode. His acting decision in this is fucking terrible. And I'm not saying he acts terrible. I'm saying he made the decision. He acts like Freddy Krueger before he's Freddy Krueger.
Right.
That's it. Pour it all over. I'm thirsty. Oh, you missed the spot. Gonna have a cookout, huh? Go ahead. Go ahead. Light it, I dare you, cop. Go ahead, you pig. Come on. I'd rather burn up than fade away. I'll be back. I'm free. Free.
Like, he's cackling maniacally. He has some dumb line where he's like, I am forever, before he even gets killed. It's like,
he's not a demon yet.
But he's acting like a demon. Right. He's acting like, he's not acting like Fred Krueger the man. He's acting like Freddy Krueger the dream nightmare demon. Yeah. Terrible decision. I don't know what he was thinking. Like, that's such a bad call.
I think this is the first episode of something we are trying to tie back to the movies, and we can't assume that our audience is intelligent enough to believe that this was a person before he became the character that everyone knows. So we're going to have to ham it up so that everyone makes the connection that, oh, this guy, even though we've got him dressed in the same sweater and the fedora hat, no, we got to hit that Freddy button really hard.
Immediately.
Right? It's like,
Instead of doing something clever,
right.
you know.
Like you can still make him evil, but he doesn't have to be the like, you know.
No, but he's acting like
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger. Like it's not right. It was such a poor choice.
So I have a question for you as well.
Please.
How do you feel about the fact that they don't show his face? So if you, I went back and watched, he's always in shadow. And I don't know why they did that, because we know he's not burnt yet. And I thought it was a great opportunity to show Robert Englund in his, like if you're going to do an origin story, show the man.
Oh, you mean when it's human form? Because once he's Freddy Krueger, they show his
that's
face.
fine.
Yeah.
But whenever you see him in his like human form, his before killed form, it's always shadow. He's always off in the.
So let's talk about direction.
Yeah.
Toby Hooper directed this.
Yeah.
You'd never know it.
No.
There's nothing that tells you. I've read people like, oh, the Toby Hooper directed episode is so good. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Negative.
It doesn't even feel like a Toby Hooper episode. It feels like a generic, shitty 90s no budget TV show. There's nothing, or I got rid of here. Yeah. No cool Freddy effects, very bland and ugly cinematography, including some garbage Freddy vision shots. Do you remember this? There's some shots where it's like from Freddy Krueger's perspective, and it goes all like negative, positive, like stupid filters. And I'm like, this looks like, it's like early digital effects. It looks like shit. Like, this is the guy that did Texas Chainsaw Massacre? You'd never know it.
Like, and we know Texas Chainsaw Massacre was made on a shoestring budget, so you can't tell me.
And it looks like art.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But you can't tell me that you can't make something out of nothing. You just mailed this one in, and that's disappointing.
And there's no there's no clever cinematography. No. It has terrible effects, no good art, no good camera direction, and everything is shot in like wide, flat images.
Yep.
Everything's in focus. They don't play with the depth of field. Like, it doesn't feel cinematic at all. It's crap. So fucking bad.
So, of all the 22 episodes in this first season, we've joked a lot about some of these that we've watched. It is on you to decide whether or not you actually want to go and subject yourself to this. Watch them by all means and have a good time with it. I will say, though, this is the one episode from that first season where I would actually recommend that you don't see it. Because if you are a fan of this, like
it's just going to piss you off.
This is going to ruin a part of that for you. There are some things that don't need to be made. This episode is not necessary.
Should not exist.
Not only is it not necessary, but it kind of wrecks something that you like. And this angers me. It's the only episode where
you know what? It's funny. I had it as my number 5. It should maybe be my number 1 in many regards, but I got 2 more points I want to make here. A good way of summarizing my feelings on this episode. I hate this episode for what it promises and does not deliver. Everyone puts this episode in their top 5, and it makes absolutely no sense to me. A completely missed opportunity. And specifically, so it promises you a cool prequel. It promises you the origin story. It's a shittier retelling of the first movie.
Right.
A garbage version of an Elm Street film. Here's my pitch to how you make this better. You ready? The entire episode should have been a court drama. We should have never left that court. It should have been a courtroom drama episode, and it should have been well written.
Yeah.
And it should have had an ending where it's still ambiguous. He gets sentenced to death or something like that, but it's still ambiguous.
You don't know whether or not he actually did the things that
we should have just gotten to see evidence play out. We could have had like jury. Like, it should have been a court drama episode. And I've heard people say, "Oh, that's the court episode." They're in court for 4 minutes of the runtime.
Yeah.
4 minutes of 46 minutes is them in court.
And then it's him stalking outside of the Blocker household, and then they somehow chase him.
And then it's just like Elm Street 1, basically, but like way shittier. Yeah.
And I felt like
poor decision.
They told a better origin story in one line when Nancy's drunk mother like kind of spilled the beans a little bit. Like, that's all you need, right? Like, sometimes it's better to just leave it unfilmed, right?
I'm not even like, Freddy's Dead did a better job.
And we
with
loved
like,
Freddy's
with like
Dead.
teenage Freddy and like little boy Freddy, and like that. Even that's crap.
Yeah.
That's better than this. Yeah. Moving on.
Cool.